Wyoming sun, dust in the air. Clara steps off the train with one suitcase, one heart full of hope, and a stack of letters that promised her a new life. But the man she came for, Ethan Cole, doesn't welcome her. He looks her straight in the eye and says, "I didn't write those letters, and I don't want a wife." The whole town stares as she's told to go back where she came from. She has no money to return, no place to run. And then a small boy runs in front of his father, shaking, crying, and confesses he wrote every letter. What happens next isn't just a love story. It's a fight for dignity, a battle against gossip, and a marriage that starts as a desperate deal, but might become something neither of them expected. And just when they finally begin to heal, an inspector shows up with papers that could take everything away. Lesson: sometimes the family that saves you is the one you choose to build, one brave decision at a time. If you want to know how Clara and Ethan turn a mistake into a home, stay with me till the end. And if this story touches you, please like, comment what you'd do in Clara's place. Share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories like this. The Wyoming sun was brutal as Clara stepped off that train. The air smelled of dust and grit, a far cry from her home back in Philadelphia. She was the only one left standing on the platform, looking for the man from the letters, tall with dark hair and a strong face. She had read his words so many times the paper was soft as an old blanket. A cold voice behind her said, "Miss Whitman." It was him, Ethan Cole. He was just as the letters described, but his eyes held no welcome. They were filled with a deep, weary sadness. Clara tried to sound brave. "Mr. Cole," she said, holding out her hand, "I am so pleased to finally—" But he cut her off. "This is a mistake." He would not take her hand, would not even look at her directly. "I do not know who sent you those letters," he said, his voice flat. "But it was not me. I never asked for a wife." The words hung in the still, hot air. Everyone on the platform stopped to stare. Clara could feel the color drain from her face. "I do not understand," she whispered. "The letters had your name. They talked about your son, your ranch." He shook his head. "I did not write them. I do not want a wife." Then his voice dropped, but the whole town heard him say, "You need to go back where you came from." Humiliation washed over her. She saw the smirks on the ranch hands' faces and the pitying looks from the other women. "I spent every last cent I had to get here," she said, her voice shaking. "The letters promised—" Ethan's voice was final. "I will pay for your ticket back east. Consider it an apology. In his name." He just turned to walk away. But something inside Clara finally broke. She had traveled 2,000 miles banking on a promise of a new life. She had left a tiny boarding house room, a teaching job that barely paid for food, and the heavy loneliness of a city that never felt like home. She gambled everything on those letters, letters that spoke to her own deep need for a family and a place to belong. "You are a coward." The words flew out of her mouth before she could catch them. Ethan stopped dead in his tracks. He turned around slowly, and for the first time, he really looked at her. His eyes were cold as a winter storm. "What did you just say?" Clara lifted her chin, though her hand trembled. "I said you are a coward. You are using whatever hurt you have as an excuse to hurt someone else, someone who traveled across this country because your letters offered a little bit of hope." The silence stretched tight between them. "You do not know a thing about me," Ethan said, his voice dangerously low. "I know you are a widower, and you have a young son. I know this ranch is struggling." Clara's voice got stronger with every word. "I know because the letters told me. And I know the person who wrote them cared enough to ask for help, which is more than you are doing." A muscle twitched in Ethan's jaw. "Papa, stop!" A child's voice sliced through the tension. Everyone turned. A small boy, no older than 7, ran out from the crowd. He was a wiry little thing, with his daddy's dark hair and eyes that looked far too old. He wore patched pants and a shirt washed so many times it had faded from blue to gray. He planted himself right between Clara and his father, his little chest puffed out. "Noah, get back to the wagon," Ethan warned. "No." The boy stuck his chin out. "You cannot send her away. I will not let you." "Son, this is not your business." "Yes, it is." Noah's voice cracked. "I sent the letters. I wrote every single word." The whole platform gasped. The world seemed to spin under Clara's feet. Those beautiful, desperate letters about needing help had been written by this child. Ethan's face turned pale. "Noah, what have you done? I did what you were too afraid to do." "But you were." Tears streamed down Noah's face. "I just wanted someone to make the house not so quiet," he sobbed. "Someone to help us. Someone to maybe make you stop looking so sad all the time." The boy's whole body shook with his tears. Without a second thought, Clara knelt in the dust and put her hands on his shoulders. "Noah, look at me," she said softly, speaking only to him. "What you did was brave. You saw your father was hurting and you tried to help him. That is not wrong. That is love." She stood and looked up at Ethan, whose face was a storm of shock and grief. "Mr. Cole," Clara said, keeping a hand on Noah's shoulder. "I know this is not what you planned. But your son brought me 2,000 miles to be here. The least we can do is not shame him for it in front of the whole town." Ethan looked from his son's tear-streaked face to Clara's steady gaze. He worked his jaw, the silence stretching on. Finally, he gave a short, sharp nod. "Fine," he grumbled. "The wagon is this way." He turned without another word. Noah grabbed Clara's hand, his small fingers gripping hers tightly, and pulled her along. "Come on, Miss Whitman," he urged. As they walked away, the whispers of the town followed them, but Clara kept her head held high. She had survived far worse than gossip. Led by the hand of a hopeful child, she walked toward an unknown future. Up beside him, then turned and offered his hand to Clara. "Here, Miss Whitman." She took his small hand and pulled herself onto the wagon seat. It was a tight squeeze for the three of them. Ethan snapped the reins and the wagon lurched forward. They rode through the town of Drywall Crossing in a heavy silence. It was a decent-sized place with a main street, a general store, and a church. Folks stopped and stared as they passed, whispering behind their hands. Clara just looked straight ahead. Once they left town, the land opened up wide, with nothing but sagebrush under a big Texas sky. The only sounds were the creak of the wagon wheels and the steady clop of the horses' hooves. "Miss Whitman?" Noah's voice was tiny. "Yes? Are you mad at me about the letters?" Clara looked down at his worried face. "No, sweetheart. I am not mad. Papa is mad." "Your papa is just surprised," she said softly. "There is a difference. He is always mad," Noah whispered, "ever since Mama died." Clara glanced at Ethan. His face was like stone, his eyes locked on the road ahead. "Grief makes people feel all kinds of things," Clara said gently. "Sometimes it looks like anger, but I think deep down, your papa is just very sad." "Are you sad too?" Noah asked. "Is that why you came?" The honest question made Clara's own sadness surface. "Yes," she admitted. "I suppose I am. I was all alone back in Philadelphia. I had a job, but no family, nobody who really needed me. Then your letters came. They made me feel like I could be useful to someone." "You can be useful to us," Noah said with pure certainty. "You can teach me my letters and numbers. And the house is a real mess. Our old housekeeper left after Mama died. She said the sadness in the house was too thick to breathe." "Noah," Ethan's sharp voice cut through the boy's chatter. "That is enough." The boy went quiet, and Clara's heart ached for him. To do. The ranch came into view over a small hill. It was a simple place, a house, a barn, and some fences stretching out into the distance. It should have looked peaceful, but it just felt empty. Ethan stopped the wagon and jumped down without a word, heading straight for the barn with his shoulders tensed up. "Papa, where are you going?" Noah called out. "Work!" The single word floated back before he vanished inside. Noah's face started to crumble. "It is all right," Clara said, putting a hand on his back. "He just needs some time to think." "He is going to send you away," the boy said, his voice choked with tears. "I know he is." "Maybe, maybe not," Clara said, climbing down from the wagon. "But for now, I am here. So why don't you show me this messy house?" Noah's eyes lit up with a little hope. "Really? You will stay?" "I will stay for a proper conversation at least," Clara said, grabbing her bag. "Now I could surely use a glass of water." The boy nearly jumped out of the wagon, his sadness replaced with sudden energy. "This way, Miss Whitman. Watch that loose step." The house was just as she had pictured it, sturdy but lonely and neglected. A layer of dust covered everything in the front room. The kitchen looked like no one had ever enjoyed a meal in it. Dirty dishes were piled up, and the windows were so grimy you could hardly see outside. But underneath all the mess, Clara saw the heart of a home. A strong fireplace, shelves that once held treasures, and a big kitchen table where a family was meant to gather. "It is not much," Noah said, watching her face. "Mama used to make it nice. She had curtains and flowers. But after she passed, Papa said there was no point to any of that." Clara set down her bag. "What happened to your mama, Noah, if you do not mind me asking?" "A fever," he said, his voice flat. "It was fast. One day she was, just 3 days later, she was gone. The doctor said some fevers are just like that. Papa won't talk about her. He even took down all her pictures, said it hurt too much to see them." Clara understood that kind of pain. She had lost her own folks years ago, leaving her all alone in a tough city. But she knew you could not bury grief. It just festers in the dark. "I am so very sorry, Noah." He just shrugged. "Papa says I ought to be over it." "Grief does not follow a calendar," she told him gently. Just then, Ethan appeared in the doorway, covered in dust. "Noah, go feed the chickens." Noah looked between the two of them, then hurried out the back. "Yes, sir." A heavy silence filled the room after he left. "I owe you an apology. Clara sure was not expecting that. What I said back at the station was wrong. You did not deserve that." He looked her right in the eye, and she could see he meant it. "You are a lady and a guest in my house, and I treated you poorly. Shock is no excuse for being cruel, Ethan." He twisted his hat in his hands. "My boy went behind my back and brought a stranger here. I am mad at him, but none of this is your fault." "So what are you going to do?" she asked. "I do not know. The right thing would be to send you home with money for your trouble. But Noah is right. This place is a mess, and I cannot teach him everything. Plus, after that scene at the station, the town gossip will be awful if I send you away now. And if you stay, they will just talk about something else. They will assume the worst about an unmarried woman living here. So either way, I am ruined." "I am giving you a choice," Ethan said, setting his hat down. "You can leave tomorrow with enough money to start over somewhere new. Or you can stay for a little while, just 1 month. You help around the house and teach Noah. I will pay you a fair wage. At the end of the month, if it is not working out, I will still pay your way back east and give you a good reference." Clara looked him over. "Why would you do all this?" He was quiet for a long time. "Because my son looked me square in the face and called me a coward." And he was not wrong. That honesty surprised her. "I have been hiding from everything," he said. "I thought I was being strong for Noah, but I was just leaving him to be sad all by himself. You traveled 2,000 miles because of letters my 7-year-old wrote. That takes guts. The least I can do is give you a fair shot." She saw something in him then, something more than just a hard, grieving man. She saw a man trying to do right. "1 month," she said. "I want a proper wage each week, and Sunday afternoons off. Done." "And one more thing," Clara added. "Do not you dare be cruel to that boy because you are mad. I will call you on it every time. A small smile touched his lips. "You have got some sand in you." "I have had to," she said, holding out her hand. "Do we have a deal, Mr. Cole?" He took her hand. His was rough and warm. "We have a deal, Miss Whitman. 1 month. It was not much, but it was a chance, and Clara knew a chance was something worth fighting for. The sun was not even up when Clara heard boots on the floor and the clang of a coffee pot. She lay in the quiet room, a world away from the noise of the city. She had barely slept thinking about the mess she was in, the rejection, Noah's confession, and Ethan's surprising offer. She had agreed to a month, but now she wondered if she had made a huge mistake. A soft knock came at the door. "Miss Whitman?" It was Noah. "Are you awake?" "I am now," she said. "Come on in." The boy peeked in, still in his nightshirt. "Papa is making breakfast. He said to tell you it would be ready in 10 minutes. Tell your papa I will be right down," she said, smiling at his serious message. "Are you really staying?" he asked, his voice small. "I am staying for 1 month, just like I said." "A whole month," he whispered, his face lighting up. "I am glad you are here, even if Papa is being a grump about it. Your Papa has a right to his feelings, Noah. This is not easy for him." "Nothing is easy for him anymore," the boy said sadly. "Before, he used to laugh all the time. Now he just works and looks tired." Clara knelt down to his level. "Listen to me. Your Papa is grieving, and that takes a long, long time. Nothing we do can hurry it along, you understand?" His eyes filled with tears. "Then why did I send for you?" "Because folks who are grieving still need help with everyday things," she explained gently. "And sometimes they just need to know they are not all alone in the world." "Are you lonely, Miss Whitman?" she asked. "Very," she admitted. "But I hope that will change." The boy gave her a sudden, tight hug. "I will help you," he promised when he pulled back. "I am a real good carrier of things." She smiled. "I would appreciate that very much." They went downstairs together with Noah chattering the whole way. The kitchen was bright, but still grimy. Ethan stood with his back to them at the stove, frying bacon in a skillet. "Sit," he said without turning. "Food is almost on the table." Clara took a seat, noticing the 3 plates did not even match. On the table, forks that did not match and mismatched cups. Noah sat beside her, swinging his little legs. Ethan served them eggs and bacon right from the skillet. The eggs were hard and the bacon was a bit burned, but Clara was so hungry she did not care. "Thank you," she said. Ethan just grunted and sat down. They ate without a word for a few minutes. The only sound was the scraping of their forks on the plates. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I start work at sunrise," he said. "I'm usually out until sunset, sometimes later." "What kind of trouble?" Clara asked. "Fence repairs, sick animals. A rancher's work is never done." He poked at his eggs. "The point is, you and Noah will be on your own most of the day." "I understand. There is food in the cellar. You can cook whatever you need." He paused. "I am not a picky eater." "I noticed," Clara said, glancing at the burned bacon. Ethan's eyes shot up to meet hers, and for a split second she thought she saw a flicker of a smile. But it was gone as fast as it appeared. "There is a garden out back," he continued. "It's all weeds. If you have a mind to fix it, you're welcome to it. I'd appreciate that. Town's about 3 miles east. There's a general store, a post office, and a church. You can take the wagon," but he paused. It might be best to lay low for a bit. Because of the talk, Clara knew. Her being here was already raising eyebrows. "I will be careful." "Thank you." Ethan finished his coffee and stood up. "I am working the north pasture. If you need something bad, ring the barn bell 3 times. I will hear it." He took his hat and was out the door before she could say another word. The house felt quiet after he left. Noah looked at her. "He is not always so grumpy." Clara almost smiled. "It is all right. We have got work to do. Finish your breakfast, then show me where your mama kept the cleaning things." The boy's face brightened. "You are really going to clean?" "From the floor to the ceiling," Clara promised. "This old house deserves better." They started right away. Clara found some rags and soap. She tied her hair back, rolled up her sleeves, and went to war with the dirt. Noah tried his best to help, chattering about the ranch and his mother. Mama used to sing when she cleaned, he said as Clara scrubbed the floor. She said it made the work go faster. What did she sing? All sorts of songs, church hymns mostly, and one about a girl waiting by a river. He hummed the tune, a little off-key, but sweet. Clara knew it. An old song about love and waiting. I know that one, she said quietly. My mother sang it too. Will you sing it? Maybe later. Right now, this floor needs to be clean enough to eat off of. Why would we eat off the floor? Noah asked, confused. Clara let out a laugh. It is just a saying. It means very, very clean. By lunchtime, the kitchen was transformed. The windows shone and the floor was spotless. Clara's back hurt and her hands were sore, but she felt a deep satisfaction. This was something she could fix. Noah stared. It looks like it did when Mama was alive. Does that make you sad? Clara asked softly. He thought about it with a child's deep seriousness. Little, he said, but mostly glad. Like maybe she can see it and know we remembered how she liked things. Clara felt a sudden sting in her eyes and turned away. I am sure she knows, sweetheart. After a simple lunch of bread and cheese, Clara started on Noah's schooling. She found some old books and a slate. They sat at the clean table, and she saw how little he knew. He could write his name and a few words, but that was all. His father had been too lost in his own grief to teach him. Clara was patient. I'm not good at this, he mumbled, after trying to spell a word. You are learning, she corrected gently. That is not the same as being good or bad. Your brain is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Really? Really. And you are a very smart boy, Noah, I can tell. You just need some practice. He soaked up her praise like dry ground soaks up rain. They worked for another hour before she sent him off to his chores, his spirit much lighter than before. She watched him run out to the chicken coop, a happy little boy again. The afternoon was long and quiet. Clara moved to the parlor, beating dust out of cushions and opening windows to let in fresh air. In a drawer, she found photographs wrapped in a cloth. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes smiled back at her, Noah's mother. She looked so full of life. Clara wondered about the woman who had made this place a home, who had sung while she worked. She wrapped the pictures back up carefully. It was not her place to put them out. That was a choice for Ethan to make. As the sun went down, Clara was bone-tired. Her dress was dirty and her muscles ached with every move. But the house, well, the house felt alive again. It felt cared for. She started dinner with what she could find, potatoes, onions, and some salt pork. Her mother had taught her how to make a good meal from simple things. Clara had some of that same skill in her hands. Ethan came back as she set the table. He stopped in the doorway, his eyes widening as he saw the clean floors and shining windows and smelled real food cooking. You have been busy, he finally said. It is what you are paying me for. He hung up his hat, looking a little lost in his own kitchen. You did not have to do all this in one day. I had the time. Seemed ashamed to waste it. Clara served the stew. Dinner is ready. Noah is washing up. They ate in a silence that felt less heavy than before. Noah chattered about finding 2 new eggs. After dinner, while they washed the dishes, he grew quiet again. I want to do it right, so you will stay. Noah, I promised I would stay a month. You do not have to earn it, but what if you change your mind? His voice was small. What if you decide it is too hard? Or Papa is too mean? Clara stopped what she was doing and turned to him. Look at me. She waited until his worried eyes met hers. I made a promise. I do not break my promises, not to you and not to your father. Do you believe me? He looked deep into her face and then nodded slowly. I believe you. Good. Now, maybe we can read a little before bed? His whole face lit up. Really? You will read to me? Mama used to read to me every night. Stories about knights and dragons. His voice grew soft. Papa tried after she was gone, but he would just get choked up and have to stop. What if I read and you follow along? It will be good practice for your letters. Noah vibrated with excitement. Yes, I will get the book. He came back with a worn book of fairy tales. They sat on the parlor sofa, Clara reading slowly while Noah's small finger traced the words on the page. He tried so hard, and she helped him gently when he stumbled. They were deep in a story about a girl outsmarting a giant when the front door opened. Ethan stepped inside. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw them, then moved like a shadow toward the stairs. "Papa," Noah called out. "Miss Whitman is reading to me. Come listen." Ethan froze, one boot on the bottom step. "You ought to be in bed." "Just one more story, Papa, please." Clara looked up and said quietly, "Let him finish this one. We are nearly at the end." His jaw went tight, and for a heart-stopping second she thought he would just order the boy to bed out of pure stubbornness. But then he gave a short nod and sat down stiffly in a chair across from them. Clara kept reading, feeling his hard stare on them both. Noah, however, was lost in the tale, leaning against her and gasping at all the right parts. When the story finished with the clever girl winning the day, Noah let out a happy sigh. "Time for bed," Ethan announced, getting to his feet. "Can Miss Whitman read again tomorrow night?" Noah asked, his eyes full of hope. "We will see," Clara said gently. "Now go on and get ready." And when Noah gave her a quick, surprising hug and then hurried up the stairs. "Good night, Papa. Good night, Miss Whitman." They both answered, "Good night, Noah," as the boy vanished upstairs. A heavy silence filled the room. Clara set the book down and stood up. "I should turn in as well." About the reading, Ethan's voice stopped her. He wrestled with the words. He has not been that happy in a long, long time. "He is a sweet boy," she said softly. "He deserves to be happy." "I know that," Ethan snapped back, his voice edged with anger. "You think I do not know that?" "I think you are doing your best in a terrible situation," Clara said carefully. "But grief can make a person forget simple things, like reading a bedtime story." His eyes flashed. "You have been here one day. Do not you dare tell me what I have forgotten." "You are right. I am sorry," she said, holding his gaze. "But I have been where Noah is. I lost both my parents within 6 months of each other. I know what it is like to watch your only family left just disappear into their own sadness." Ethan's anger melted away, replaced by surprise. "You lost them both." "I was 19. My father's heart gave out. My mother followed soon after. The doctor called it pneumonia, but I believe it was a broken heart," she said, her voice steady. "I understand loss. Mr. Cole may be not your kind of loss, but I understand it." He was quiet for a long time. "I did not know." "How could you?" she replied, moving toward the stairs. "I will see you in the morning." The days that followed fell into a steady rhythm. Ethan was gone before the sun was up and back after dark, barely speaking a word. Noah became her little shadow, hungry for lessons and kindness. Together they worked through his school books and brought the neglected garden back to life. They cleaned the house from top to bottom until it shined. Clara discovered she was good at making order out of chaos. She mended Noah's clothes and learned the ways of the chickens and the cows. The hard work tired her clean out, but it filled an empty place inside her. She was needed here, more than she had been in years. On Sunday, her afternoon off, Clara walked far out into the pastures until the ranch house was just a speck behind her. She sat under a twisted old cottonwood tree, letting the big Texas sky and the quiet wash over her. She thought about her lonely life back in the city, and this strange new one, taking care of a grieving boy and a man who wore his pain like armor. It was harder than she had imagined, but it was also more real. To her own surprise, she did not regret coming one bit. When she got back to the house, Noah was waiting on the porch steps, his face lighting up when he saw her. I was worried you had left for good. I told you I would be back, she said, sitting beside him. I know, he mumbled, but people keep leaving. Well, I am not going anywhere, she said gently. Not yet. But you will, he said, stating a hard fact. When the month is over. Clara could not bring herself to lie. Maybe, or maybe, then your father and I will talk about it. We can't know anything for sure right now. What if I asked you to stay here forever? Would you do it? The question hit her right in the chest. Oh, honey, it is not that simple. Why is it not? Because your father has to want that, and right now, all he is doing is trying to get through the day. Noah fiddled with a loose piece of wood on the porch step. Do you think he will ever be happy again? I think happiness finds its way back in small bits after a great sadness. Like when I see you read a whole sentence by yourself, or when we eat a good meal, or when I hear you laugh. Clara nudged his shoulder. It just takes time. That peaceful moment shattered 3 days later. Clara was out in the garden trying to save what was left of the squash plants when she heard a carriage pull up. Noah ran out to see, then came tearing back. Miss Whitman, a lady is here. A real fancy one. Clara stood up, wiping the dirt on her apron. A fancy lady was the last person she expected to see way out here. A fine carriage, nicer than anything in town, was stopped in the yard. The woman who stepped out wore a dress that surely cost a year's wages, her hair done up perfectly under a stylish hat. She was the picture of elegance, everything Clara was not. You must be Miss Whitman, the woman said, her voice sounding educated and cold. I am Margaret Thornberry. My father owns the ranch next to this one. A pleasure to meet you, Clara said, painfully aware of her dirty dress and messy hair. Margaret's gaze flickered over her, full of judgment. I heard a curious story in town about a mail-order bride who showed up where she was not wanted. I had to see for myself. Clara kept her face calm. I am here to be a housekeeper and a teacher for Noah. Of course, Margaret said, her smile never reaching her eyes. How generous of you. And of Ethan, taking in a woman with a questionable background. My background is my own business. Perhaps. But Ethan's is mine, Margaret said, stepping closer. He and I had an understanding long before his wife passed, an arrangement between our families. Clara's heart sank. I did not know that. Why would you? You are just the help. Margaret's smile turned sharp. But I believe you should know how things stand. Ethan will need a suitable wife, someone who belongs in his world, not a desperate woman who answered a little boy's letters. The cruelty of her words was stunning. Clara fought to keep her voice even. If you have an understanding with Mr. Cole, you should speak to him about it. Oh, I plan to. We are having a private dinner tomorrow night. You will need to be somewhere else. Take the boy into town. Mr. Cole has not said anything about dinner. He will, Margaret said, gathering her fine skirts. Do enjoy your short time here, Miss Whitman. But do not get too comfortable. Some things are just too good to be true. She walked back to her carriage like a queen, leaving Clara frozen. An understanding, a respectable arrangement. Noah came and took her hand. I do not like her. She is mean. She is just protecting what she believes is hers, Clara whispered. But Papa is not hers. He is ours. That evening, Clara waited until Noah was eating before she spoke to Ethan. You had a visitor, Margaret Thornberry. Ethan's fork stopped mid-air. Margaret was here? She wanted to meet me and to tell me about your dinner plans for tomorrow. His jaw clenched. I do not have any plans with her. She seemed very sure. Well, she is wrong. Ethan put his fork down hard. Margaret has expectations that I do not share. Her father wants to combine our ranches by having us marry. I have never once encouraged her. She does not seem to know that. Then I will make it clearer, he said, pushing back from the table. If she comes here tomorrow, you tell her I am busy. Tell her I will be busy for a long, long time. His eyes flashed with anger. I did not ask for her to meddle, just like I did not ask for you. The difference is, you are actually a help to me. It was not a sweet compliment, but from him it felt like high praise. The next day, Margaret did not show up, but the gossip she started surely did. Noah came back from the hen house saying Mrs. Patterson from the next ranch over had stopped him to ask all sorts of questions about Clara and Ethan. She said folks are talking, Noah said, his voice quiet. She said it is not proper for you to be here. Clara's hands paused while she was kneading bread dough. What did you tell her? I told her you are my teacher, and you are helping Papa, and it is none of her business. He looked up at her, worried. Was that okay? Yes, sweetheart. That was perfect. But the talk got worse. When Clara went to town, she felt the stares and heard the whispers. It was a heavy weight, grinding her spirit down. The worst of it happened at the general store. The owner, Mr. Hendricks, had always been polite before. This time he looked straight through her. I need these things, please, Clara said, putting her list on the counter. Hendricks looked at the list but did not touch it. This for the coal account? Yes. And you have permission to buy things on it. The insult was plain as day. Clara felt her face burn. I am just buying flour and sugar, Mr. Hendricks. I do not see the problem. It is not what you are buying. It is what people are saying. They say you are an unmarried woman living out there with Ethan Cole, and it is not right. I am not living with him. Clara's voice was loud, turning heads. I am his housekeeper and the boy's teacher. There's nothing wrong with my being there. Maybe so, Hendricks muttered. But it looks bad. The word struck her like a slap. Behind her she heard Noah gasp. My papa is a good man, the boy cried out. And Miss Whitman is good too. You're all just mean. Tears streamed down his face. I am sick of everyone being mean. You do not know how sad we were. You do not know that she makes Papa smile even when he tries to hide it. The whole store went silent. Every person was staring. Clara made up her mind. She stood up tall, took Noah's hand, and walked to the door. Keep your supplies, Mr. Hendricks, she said without looking back. And you can tell your customers that mean-spirited gossip always finds a way to come back and bite you. They rode home without a word. When they got back, Ethan was in the yard. He saw their faces and immediately stood up. What happened? Nothing, Clara said quickly. Noah? The boy started crying again and ran inside. Ethan looked back at Clara. Tell me what happened. And so she told him everything. She told him about the store, the accusations, and Noah's brave defense. She kept her voice steady, as if telling someone else's story. With every word, Ethan's face grew harder and colder, his hands clenched into fists. His hands into fists. I will handle this, he said, his voice quiet and dangerous. There is nothing to handle. It is just town gossip. Gossip is one thing, he bit out. Humiliating you in public is another. He strode toward the barn. I am going to town. Mr. Cole, please do not. I should have done this weeks ago, he said, throwing a saddle on his horse with a rough energy. Should have made things clear instead of hiding out here like a coward. What are you going to do? He swung into the saddle. For the first time, she saw fire in his eyes instead of old ashes. I am going to remind this town that Ethan Cole does not answer to them, and neither do the folks under my protection. He rode off hard, kicking up a cloud of dust. Clara's heart hammered in her chest, torn between feeling grateful and terrified. Noah came out of the house, his eyes red. Is Papa going to yell at Mr. Hendricks? I do not know what he's going to do, Clara said, pulling the boy into a hug. But none of this is your fault. Do you understand? It feels like it is, he whispered. If I had not sent those letters, you would not be here getting hurt. If you had not sent those letters, she said, tipping his chin up to meet her eyes, I would still be in a city. teaching children who did not care, and going home to an empty room. You gave me a chance at something real. I will gladly pay whatever price comes with it." They went inside and tried to keep busy, but the minutes dragged by. When the sun began to set, Ethan returned. He moved slowly, his face like a stone mask as he unsaddled his horse and walked to the house. Clara met him at the door. "Well?" she finally asked, unable to bear the silence. "It is handled." "What does that mean?" He walked past her and pumped some water, drinking it all down before he answered. "I had a talk with Hendricks. I made it clear that your credit is as good as mine in his store. He will not refuse you again." "And the other things they were saying?" "I might have mentioned," Ethan said, setting the cup down carefully, "that if he kept spreading lies about my people, I would take my business and that of my neighbors somewhere else." "You threatened him." "I stated facts," he said, his jaw set. "Hendricks needs our business more than we need his store." He understood. Clara sank into a chair, relieved, but also worried. "You did not have to do that for me." "Yes, I did," Ethan said, finally looking right at her. The force of his gaze took her breath away. "You came here in good faith. You have worked harder than anyone I know. You brought my son back to me when I had all but given up. I will be damned if I let a bunch of small-minded gossips run you off." The words settled between them, changing everything. "Thank you," she whispered. "Do not thank me. I should have done it weeks ago." He started for the stairs, but paused. "For what it is worth, Miss Whitman, you were right. I was a coward that first day, hiding from my grief, from my duty, from everything that mattered. But I am done hiding now." He went upstairs, leaving Clara alone with the weight of his words, but sleep would not come. She lay awake, listening to the old house groan. Ethan speaking up for her had bought them some breathing room, but it did not solve the real problem. She was an unmarried woman living in his house. It was a scandal, no matter how proper things were. They had agreed to 1 month. 2 weeks were left. And then what? The question followed her through the next few days. The town gossip did not stop, but it became quiet whispers instead of open stares. Clara kept working, teaching Noah, and trying to bring the little garden back to life. All the while she felt the clock ticking. Ethan kept his distance, but he was not as cold. He thanked her for meals. He even sat with them one evening while she read to Noah, though he left as soon as the story was over. They were small things, but they felt huge. Then on a Thursday morning, with exactly 2 weeks left, a rider came up to the house carrying official-looking papers. Clara was hanging laundry when Noah came running. "Miss Whitman, there is a man here with papers for Papa. He looks—" Clara followed her husband out to the yard, where a man in a stiff city suit sat on a tall black horse. He looked mighty out of place. Ethan came out of the barn, squinting in the sunlight. The man called himself Lawrence Finch, an inspector from the land office. He announced he was there to assess Ethan's homestead claim. Ethan's face went hard as stone. He said he had proven his claim 3 years ago. Finch explained that new territorial rules required them to check on a man's moral fitness. It turned out someone had filed complaints about an unmarried woman living in the house. "That woman was me." Finch said that what people thought mattered in these parts. Ethan stepped forward, his hands in fists. He demanded to know who made the complaints. Finch just said they were anonymous. He declared he would be in town for a few days asking questions. If he decided there was a moral problem, Ethan would have 30 days to fix it or lose everything. As he was leaving, Finch offered 2 solutions. A proper marriage would solve the problem. Or, he added, Ethan could just get rid of me. He rode away, leaving us standing there in a cloud of dust and shock. "That's Margaret's handiwork," Ethan said, his voice low and angry. "I told him it did not matter who was behind it. I was the one bringing this trouble to his door, threatening everything his late wife had built with him. 'Do not you dare say that,' he shot back. But Finch had left only 2 choices: marry me or send me away. I said I would leave right then to end it. That is when little Noah cried out. He reminded me I had promised to stay for a month. With tears pouring down his face, he yelled that everyone leaves him, and now I was leaving too. He ran for the house and slammed the door behind him. The silence in the yard was heavy. "There is a third option," I said, the words barely coming out. "The one Finch mentioned. Marriage." Ethan looked at me as if I'd grown a second head. I quickly explained it would not be a real marriage, not in the ways that mattered. It would be a business arrangement, a legal partnership to protect his land and give Noah the stable home he needed so badly. It was a practical solution that would end the gossip for good and satisfy their rules. "Marriage is a sacred vow," Ethan said roughly. I told him that sometimes marriage is just about survival. This was not about love. It was about solving a problem that threatened to destroy him. With this plan, he would keep his land and Noah would have his stability. I would have a safe place and a purpose. Nobody had to lose a thing. He stared at me hard. "You would truly do this? Tie yourself to a man you barely know?" I looked him straight in the eye and said, "This is my problem now, too." And yes, I would. Ethan said he needed time to think on it. Later, I found Noah on his bed facing the wall. I sat down and told him that his papa and I were trying to find a way for me to stay. He rolled over, his eyes full of hope and fear. I explained that some people had rules about me living here and we had to follow them. I took a deep breath. "What would you think," I asked gently, "if your papa and I were to get married?" Noah sat bolt upright, his little face a picture of pure astonishment. "Have you ever been pushed into a corner so tight the only way out was to do something crazy?" That's where Clara and Ethan were. A good woman about to be run out of town and a down-on-his-luck rancher about to lose everything. Their wild solution? A marriage of convenience. But first, Clara had to explain it to a 7-year-old boy. Little Noah asked, "So would you be my new mama?" That question hit Clara right in the heart. "Nobody could ever replace your mama, Noah," she said gently. "But I could be someone who loves you and is always here for you." Noah thought hard. "Would you still read me stories and laugh at my bad jokes?" With tears in her eyes, Clara promised she would. "Then I want it," he shouted, throwing his arms around her. "I want you to stay forever." But that night, Ethan's chair at the dinner table was empty. A big old question mark hanging right over their heads. Clara waited up, her hands busy with mending she couldn't see. The clock on the mantel ticked away the long, quiet hours. Ethan finally walked in near midnight, looking like he'd wrestled a bear and lost. He stopped short when he saw her. "I've been thinking about Sarah," he said, the first time he'd spoken his late wife's name. Clara held her breath. "Folks thought we married for love," he said with a sad smile. "But truth is, we made a deal. She was a teacher with nowhere to go, and I was a rancher who needed help. Love, well, that grew later on, out of shared hard work." He looked up, his eyes tired but clear. "It was a good marriage until the fever took her and left me with nothing but this land and our boy." He stared at the floorboards like he could see his whole life there. "I swore I'd never marry again. But thinking about losing this ranch, failing Noah, and watching you leave, I reckon I'm more scared of that." Clara's heart did a little flip. "So what are you saying, Ethan?" He finally met her gaze. "I'm saying yes, but you need to know what you're getting into. I can't promise you love, not the storybook kind. A part of me is still buried with her." "I'm not asking for a storybook," Clara said softly. "I'm asking for a partner." Ethan nodded. "Then we need rules. This is a business arrangement. We'll have separate rooms and run our own parts of this life. In private, we're partners, not husband and wife in the way folks mean it." It was what she'd proposed, but hearing it said so plainly stung a little. Still, she agreed. "That's fair. And Noah," Ethan's voice got softer, "we have to be straight with him. He can't think we're something we're not." Clara smiled gently. He's a boy. He'll hope no matter what. But we can be honest with him." Ethan let out a long breath. "Well then, I suppose we're engaged." The word sounded strange and out of place. He looked like a man about to jump off a cliff because the only other choice was to drown. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow," he said. "The circuit judge is passing through Drywell Crossing. We need to make this legal before that government man, Finch, can stick his nose in our business." Tomorrow. In 24 hours, she'd be Mrs. Cole, married to a man who was still in love with a memory. "All right," she heard herself say, "tomorrow." As he headed upstairs, Ethan paused. "Clara," he said, using her first name for the very first time. "Thank you. You're saving more than just this land." The next morning, Clara put on her best dress, a simple blue cotton. It wasn't a wedding gown, but it would have to do. Noah peeked into her room, his eyes wide. "You look real pretty, Miss Whitman." He fidgeted with his buttons. "Is it wrong that I'm happy? Mama's only been gone a year." Clara knelt down and took his small hands. "Your mama would want you to be happy, sweetheart. This isn't about forgetting her. It's about finding a new way to move forward." Ethan was already in the kitchen, looking stiff and uncomfortable in a suit that was a bit too tight in the shoulders now. "Wagon's ready," he said. "Judge Morton will see us at the courthouse at 9. The ride to town was quiet, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. The Drywell Crossing courthouse wasn't much, just a stone building that also served as the land office in the jail. Judge Morton, a stout man with kind eyes, was waiting on the steps. 2 folks from church were there to be witnesses. "Mr. Cole, Miss Whitman," the judge nodded. "I hear y'all are here to get hitched." "Yes, sir," Ethan said, his voice firm. "And you're both doing this of your own free will?" They both looked at each other. Their wills weren't exactly free, but they were determined. "Yes," they said together. The ceremony was short and to the point, more like a contract than a wedding. It was all about partnership and respect, with no mention of love, and for that, Clara was grateful. When it was time for the ring, Ethan pulled out a simple gold band he must have bought that morning. His hand shook a little as he slid it onto her finger. It was too big, loose enough that it settled on her middle knuckle. It wasn't a perfect fit, but it was real, and for now, it was enough. The judge closed his book with a loud thud. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Just like that, I became Mrs. Cole. Ethan did not kiss me. The moment was awkward, but I was grateful. A kiss would have been a lie. As we signed the papers, the door flew open and Lawrence Finch stormed in, his face red with fury. He shouted that our marriage was a sham. The judge just looked at him calmly and asked if he had any proof. Finch could only sputter that the timing was mighty suspicious. That is when Ethan spoke, his voice cold as steel. "What is obvious, sir, is that you are trying to drive my wife from her home. And she is not going anywhere. That she is now Mrs. Cole, legal and proper. Your opinion does not matter one bit." Finch's face turned beet red. He threatened an investigation from the land office, but Judge Morton cut him off sharp. "Unless you are accusing me of performing an illegal wedding, Mr. Finch, your business here is finished." Finch shot them a look that could kill before storming out. In the quiet that followed, Noah let out a nervous giggle. The judge just smiled. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Cole." After thanking him, they stepped into the bright sunlight. Clara stared at the new ring on her finger. "We need to tell folks," Ethan said, "to get ahead of the gossip. We will go to the church social tomorrow. We will show up together, newly married, and dare anyone to say a word." It was a bold plan, but Clara knew he was right. It was a calculated move, a way to get ahead of the gossip before it consumed them. She nodded her approval. "All right. Tomorrow we'll face the town as husband and wife." Ethan's face was grim. "Tomorrow we walk into the lion's den." The wagon ride home was thick with a silence that spoke volumes. On her finger, the wedding band felt like a foreign object, warm but out of place. It was a crazy notion, being married to the grieving man beside her, a man who wanted nothing to do with her just 6 weeks prior. Noah, however, was blissfully unaware of the tension. "When we tell everyone, I bet Mrs. Patterson will faint. Remember when she fainted clean away in the church aisle over the Hendersons' twin calves?" "That's enough, son," Ethan said, his voice lacking its usual bite. When they arrived at the ranch, his hand was firm under her elbow as he helped her down, a proper and brief touch that still sent a jolt up her arm. The thought hit her hard. They were legally bound. "I need to check the north fence line," Ethan announced, already moving away. "Coyotes have been sniffing around." "It's well past noon, Ethan," Clara pointed out. "You haven't eaten." "I'll be fine." He paused without turning back. "You should get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a long day." And with that, he vanished into the barn, running from something he couldn't put a name to. Clara stood alone in the yard, feeling the full weight of their arrangement settle in her heart. This was it. A marriage of distance and duty. She'd proposed it, but the reality of being alone on her wedding day stung more than she expected. "He's just scared," Noah said, taking her hand. "I know, honey. Are you scared?" Clara asked, looking into his wise little eyes. "A little," he admitted. "But you're not going to leave us, are you?" "No. I made a promise, and I always keep my promises." She squeezed his hand. "Come on. Let's get a special supper on the table. Your papa needs to eat, whether he knows it or not." They spent the afternoon cooking up a storm. She roasted a chicken and pulled new potatoes from the garden she'd worked so hard to save, turning their simple supplies into a proper meal. It wasn't a wedding feast, but it marked the day all the same. Ethan came back at sundown, covered in dust and bone-tired. He froze in the doorway, staring at the table set with the good china. "What's all this?" he asked, his voice rough. "It's supper," Clara said plainly. "I figured we should eat together, as a family." That last word hung between them. They weren't a family, not yet, but they were playing the part. Ethan washed up and sat down without another word. The meal was quiet, with only Noah filling the silence. When they finished, Ethan stood up. "I'll take the barn tonight. Give you some space." "That's not necessary," Clara said, confused. "We already agreed on separate rooms." "I know what we agreed," he said, his jaw tight. "But folks talk. It's just simpler this way." "But, Papa, you can't sleep in the barn," Noah pleaded. "I'll be fine," Ethan insisted, grabbing his hat. He looked at Clara, his eyes impossible to read. "Lock up." Then he was gone. Noah's lip quivered, and Clara hugged him tight. "He just needs some time," she whispered, the words feeling empty even to her. "Everything is hard for him," Noah said, his voice small. Clara put Noah to bed, reading his favorite stories until he drifted off. But in her own room, his first wife's room, the loneliness was crushing. She'd become a wife today, only to spend her wedding night alone while her husband slept with the livestock. She allowed herself a few tears, just enough to ease the ache in her chest. Then she took a deep breath. She had chosen this path. It was a business deal, plain and simple. If she'd secretly wished for more, that was her own foolish heart's problem. The next morning, she found Ethan in the kitchen, a fresh pot of coffee already brewed. He looked like he hadn't slept a wink. "Morning," he grunted. "Good morning," she replied, pouring a cup. "Are we still going to the church social?" "Yes. We have to be seen. Make this official in their eyes." He finally looked at her. "Can you handle it? Pretending to be a happy couple?" "The question is, can you?" Clara countered. His jaw twitched. "I'll do what needs to be done." The social started at 2:00. Clara put on her best dress and steeled her nerves. This was it, their first public test as Mr. and Mrs. Cole. Noah was practically bouncing. "Everyone's going to be so shocked. Can I tell them?" "We'll tell them together," Ethan said firmly. "All three of us." They made their entrance late on purpose. Every head in the churchyard turned as their wagon pulled up. The whispers started immediately. Ethan helped Clara down, his hand possessively at her waist. a perfect picture for the crowd. Only she could feel the slight tremor in his fingers. "Ready?" he murmured. "As I'll ever be." They walked straight into the crowd, Noah held between them. The chatter didn't just quiet down, it stopped cold. Every single eye was locked on them. Margaret Thornberry's face went from white to red in a heartbeat. Clara's old boss, Mr. Hendricks, stood with his mouth hanging open. And sure enough, Mrs. Patterson looked about ready to faint. The preacher, Reverend Walsh, was the first to approach. "Ethan, Miss Whitman, we didn't expect to see you." "It's Mrs. Cole now, Reverend," Ethan announced, his voice carrying across the silent yard. "We were married yesterday. I wanted you all to meet my wife." The news landed like a cannonball. A wave of gasps went through the crowd. "Married?" Mrs. Patterson shrieked. "But you barely even know each other." "We know each other well enough," Clara said, holding her head high. "We found we have a mutual respect for one another." "Respect?" Margaret spat the word, pushing her way forward. "You mean you schemed your way into his life? Everyone knows what kind of woman you are." "That is enough." Ethan's voice was sharp as a razor. "You will not speak to my wife that way." "Your wife?" Margaret laughed, a truly ugly sound. "For how long? Until you forget all about Sarah?" The words were meant to wound, and they did. But before anyone could react, Noah stepped right up to her. "You're being mean, Miss Thornberry." His little voice rang out, clear as a bell. "Clara is kind. She makes Papa smile when he thinks no one is looking. She's making our house a home again. Mama is gone and we're still here. And we deserve to be happy too." A stunned silence fell over the entire gathering. Margaret just stared at the little boy, her hateful expression completely frozen. Noah stood his ground, a small boy protecting his champion. Ethan's voice cut through the silence. "My son is right. He wrote to Clara because our grief was breaking us, and I was too blind to see it. She came here with an honest heart and has worked hard. I made her my wife because I respect her, and I will not let town gossip run off the first good thing to happen to us in a year." "How convenient," Samuel Thornbury sneered. "Marrying her the day after the land inspector shows up. Some might call that good sense," Ethan shot back. "I chose to protect my family." "Family?" Margaret's voice cracked. "You do not know the meaning of the word. You have replaced Sarah, the woman who built this ranch with you, with a nobody from nowhere." "Sarah is gone," Ethan's voice filled with a year's worth of pain. "I will always love her, but she is not here. Noah and I are, and we have to keep on living. Clara is helping us do that." Tears streamed down Margaret's face. "Our fathers arranged for us to be together. We were supposed to join our properties. I never agreed to that," Ethan said gently. "I am sorry to hurt you, but that was never my plan." Reverend Walsh tried to calm things down, suggesting everyone offer their congratulations. But the crowd just stood there, frozen by the scandal. Clara felt the weight of their judgment. They hated her, saw her as a woman who had stolen what was not hers. "I think we should go," she whispered to Ethan. "No." His voice was firm. "We are not running." He took her hand, holding it for all to see. The touch of his hand was a warm, solid anchor. "My wife and I are going to enjoy this social. Anyone with a problem can leave." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Mrs. Henderson, the widow who ran the boarding house, stepped forward. "Congratulations," she said warmly. Her kindness broke the tension. A few others offered congratulations, some genuine, some forced. But Margaret and her father stormed off, and several other families made their excuses and left. The afternoon crawled by in a blur of polite, tense conversation. Finally, it was time to head home. They left under the heavy gaze of the whole town. No one said a word on the ride home. Noah, worn out from it all, fell asleep against Clara. When they got to the ranch, Ethan looked at her. "You did real well today." "I felt like I was on trial," she admitted. "We both were," he said softly. "But we made it through." After tucking Noah into bed, they stood awkwardly in the hall. I will sleep in Sarah's old sewing room, Ethan said, to keep up appearances. Clara twisted her new ring. Ethan, what Margaret said. She is just hurt, he replied. Do not let her words get to you. But she was right. We barely know each other. What if this is a terrible mistake? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Right before Sarah passed, she grabbed my hand. She told me, don't you let the grief bury you and don't let it bury Noah. You find a way to keep living. For the longest time, I figured that just meant working myself to the bone. He looked at Clara, and she saw the raw hurt he tried so hard to hide. But then you showed up, and I realized living is more than just getting by. It's about making the hard choices that move you forward. This marriage of ours might not be some grand romance, but we both walked into it with our eyes wide open. And that's got to mean something. Clara lay awake that night, thinking about the strange, fragile life they were trying to build. The next week, things eased up between them. Ethan started thanking her for supper, and Clara would ask about the ranch. Little Noah was the bridge that filled the quiet spaces. The town was another story, split right down the middle. Some folks started coming around, but others, like the Thornberrys, gave them the cold shoulder every chance they got. Clara learned to hold her head high and not apologize for simply being there. Then, 2 weeks after the wedding, Lawrence Finch came riding back with a couple of official-looking men. Her stomach hit the floor. She found Ethan in the barn. Finch is here, she said, plain and simple. And he brought company. Ethan's face hardened. You get behind me. I'll handle this. Finch got off his horse with a smug look, unrolling a paper. Mr. and Mrs. Cole, he said, dripping with false manners. I'm here with the results of the moral fitness report. Ethan stared him down. I thought the wedding settled all that. Finch's smile was pure poison. It would have if the marriage was real. We have reports you two sleep in separate rooms and show no real affection. Finch's eyes were as cold as a snake's. This ain't a real marriage. It's a business deal. Clara felt a chill run right through her. Someone had been watching them, telling tales out of school. Our sleeping arrangements are our own affair, she said, her voice trembling with anger. Not when they prove you're committing fraud, Finch shot back. The law says a marriage just to get around the rules can be torn up, and that means you have 30 days to get off this property. Ethan stepped forward. You can't do this. We're legally married. You had a ceremony, Finch sneered, looking between them. But that don't make it a marriage, not unless you can prove it's the real deal. Show us you're sharing a life, a home, the kind of closeness that makes a marriage legitimate. The ugly meaning was plain as day. Prove you're sharing a bed or you lose everything. Clara was speechless. I'm demanding you prove this is real, Finch said, rolling up his papers. 30 days, or this land is forfeit. After he rode off, a heavy silence fell. The very marriage meant to save the ranch was now the whip used to drive them off it. Who told them? Clara whispered. Does it matter? Ethan's voice was empty. He's right. We're partners with a piece of paper, that's all. So what do we do? He turned to her, desperation and grit warring in his eyes. We make it real. We stop sleeping in separate rooms. We give them exactly what they want. Clara's heart pounded against her ribs. You mean we share a bed? I mean we act like a husband and wife, not like strangers. He ran a hand through his hair, a mess of frustration. I know this ain't what we agreed on, but I can't lose this land, Clara. It's all I have left of Sarah's dream. It's all I have to give our boy Noah. You're asking me to tear down every wall we put up. I'm asking you to help me save what we've built. His eyes begged her. I know it's not fair, but I'm asking all the same. She looked at him, her thoughts a whirlwind. A marriage of convenience was one thing. A real marriage with real intimacy was another. But the only other choice was losing it all. The ranch, Noah's home, her own future. All right, she heard herself say. We'll make it real. The words hung between them, heavy and dangerous. Ethan let out a breath that was half relief, half fear. We have to be convincing. Whoever's spying on us can't see a thing out of place. "So we start tonight," Clara said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We'll move my things into your room. We have to look like a couple that can at least stand the sight of each other." A sad smile touched Ethan's lips. "I know that's a tall order considering how we started. We've both asked for the impossible," Clara said softly. They spent the afternoon in a quiet rush. Clara packed her things while Ethan made room for her in the big master bedroom. The space still held the ghost of his first wife, Sarah, a hairbrush on the vanity, the faint smell of lavender. Clara felt like she was trespassing on sacred ground. "I should have put her things away a year ago," Ethan said from the doorway. He looked around the room with haunted eyes. "But every time I tried, it felt like I was erasing her." "You don't have to erase her," Clara said gently. "But maybe it's time to make room for what's happening now." Together they gathered Sarah's belongings and placed them in a trunk. Ethan's hands shook as he closed the lid. "She was a good woman," he said, his voice rough. "I'm sure she was," Clara said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And I'm sure she'd want you to keep on living." He covered her hand with his own for just a moment. "Thank you for understanding." They worked together then, moving furniture, making a space that felt like it belonged to both of them. When Noah came in for supper, he saw it right away. His eyes grew wide. "Are you and Papa sharing a room now?" he asked, his little voice full of hope. "We are, sweetie," Clara said. "Does that mean you're really married? Not just pretend?" The question cut right to the bone. Ethan knelt down to his son's level. "We were always really married," he said gently. "But we're still getting to know each other. Building a family takes time, you understand?" Noah nodded. "Like you said, you and Mama were friends first." "Exactly like that," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. The boy threw his arms around them both in a big hug. "I'm glad. I was worried you'd send her away." Ethan met Clara's eyes over Noah's head. "Never. She's family now. And family stays." That night, after Noah was asleep, the big bedroom felt awfully small. Clara came out of the washroom in her nightgown to find Ethan already in bed, lying on the far edge with his back to her side. "I won't touch you," he said to the wall. "I know this is hard enough." She slipped under the covers on her side of the bed, the space between them feeling like a canyon. They lay there in a stiff silence, each one painfully aware of the other. The quiet was almost louder than talking. "Clara," his voice was soft in the dark. "Yes?" "I'm sorry for all of it, for putting you in this position, for asking more than I have a right to." "We're both asking for the impossible," she whispered back. "That makes us even." He shifted in the bed. "When I turned you away at that train station, I thought I was protecting myself, protecting Noah. But really, I was just being a coward." "Afraid of what?" "Of living again," he admitted. "Of letting someone else in. You terrified me then. Still do." Her throat felt tight. "Why?" He finally turned to face her in the dim light. "Because you make me feel things I thought died with Sarah. Not love. Not yet. But hope. And that's a terrifying thing when you've told yourself all you deserve is to just get by." She met his gaze. "I understand. After my folks passed, I thought being alone was safer. But being safe and lonely is its own kind of dying. So we're just two broken people trying to figure out how to live again," Ethan said with a small smile. "I reckon we are," she answered. "Then maybe we can learn how, one day at a time." "I'd like that," Clara whispered. They fell asleep like that, on opposite sides of the bed, not touching, but closer than they'd ever been. In the days that followed, they started acting like a real married couple. They worked in the garden together and sat on the porch swing at night. A hand might brush over a dinner plate, or shoulders would touch while reading to Noah. At first, it was for show, but then parts of it started to feel real. Ethan began telling her stories about the ranch, about his first wife, Sarah. The stories weren't painful anymore. They felt like him sharing a piece of his past. Noah was happier than ever, and the whole house just felt lighter. But Lawrence Finch was always snooping around, just waiting for them to make a mistake. About 3 weeks later, Clara and Ethan went to town for supplies. They walked into the general store holding hands, putting on a brave face for the gossips. Mrs. Patterson cornered them right away. "Well now, Mrs. Cole," she said with a tight smile. "How very domestic." Clara smiled right back. "We find that partnership makes a marriage strong." The older woman's eyes narrowed. "Some might say a proper marriage requires more than a few weeks of courtship." Ethan's hand tightened on hers. "And some might say facing down hardship together builds a stronger bond than any easy courtship could. My wife and I have been through more in 2 months than most folks see in a lifetime. It's made us stronger." The words hung in the air, bold and true. Clara felt a warmth spread through her. He wasn't just putting on a show. He meant it. As they were loading up the wagon, Samuel Thornberry marched over with his daughter Margaret trailing behind him. The old man was furious. "Cole, a word with you." Ethan didn't let go of Clara's hand. "Then say it." Thornberry's voice got louder. "This whole charade has gone on long enough. Everyone knows this marriage is a sham to keep your land. It should have been mine through Margaret. We had an understanding." "You had hopes," Ethan said, his voice cold as ice. "I never promised you or your daughter a thing." Margaret stepped up, looking pale. "Ethan, please. This woman has put some kind of spell on you. You're forgetting what you owe to Sarah's memory." "I owe Sarah peace," Ethan said gently. "And that means moving on, not being trapped by grief. Clara helped me see that." Margaret's face twisted in anger. "She's a nobody." "She's my wife," Ethan's voice rang out, clear and strong. "And she has more courage, more grace, and more honest-to-God kindness than anyone in this town, and that includes you." A gasp went through the crowd. Thornberry's hands balled into fists. "You'll regret this, Cole. When Finch's report comes out, you'll lose everything." "I won't need your mercy," Ethan said, helping Clara into the wagon. "I have something better. I have my family." He drove off without a single look back. As they rode, Clara's heart was pounding. "That might have made things a whole lot worse," she said quietly. "Maybe," Ethan replied, "but I'm done letting bullies run my life. You're my wife. That means I stand with you. I should have been doing that from the start." "Ethan," she choked out, "thank you." "I meant every word," he said, taking her hand. "You've become important to me, Clara. This started out as a business deal, but it's turning into something else. Something real." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "For me, too. I know we agreed to just be partners, but I can't help—" She trailed off. "Can't help what?" he asked softly, hoping it could be more. The words hung in the air, leaving her feeling completely exposed. Ethan pulled the wagon to a halt. He turned to her, his face serious. "When Sarah died, I thought that part of me died with her. I figured all I had left in me was grief. But you, Clara, you showed me there's room for more. It's not what I had before, and it shouldn't be, but it's real, and it's growing." "What are you trying to say?" she whispered. He cupped her face in his hands. "I'm saying I'm falling in love with you, Clara Cole. It's not perfect, and it's been slow, but it is genuine." Her own tears finally fell. "I'm falling in love with you, too." Then Ethan leaned in and kissed her. It felt like their world was just beginning when Lawrence Finch showed up and tore it all down. The day before, a gentle kiss had tasted like a fresh start. But now, Finch stood on their porch with a deputy, holding papers that said their marriage was a lie. He gave them a cold smile and a final notice. The government decided their union was just a trick to keep the homestead. They had 7 days to clear out before they were thrown off the land. Clara felt the ground disappear from under her. 7 days. After all they had built, the love they had found, it meant nothing. She told Finch their marriage was real, that they had a home and a family. Finch just sneered, saying the timing of their wedding, right after his first warning, was all the proof he needed. Ethan argued that their love was real, but Finch shut him down. He said a son who helped with the plan and neighbors who saw them in separate rooms told a different story. This was fraud, he declared, and fraud had consequences. Clara, desperate, said they would appeal, take it to a higher court. Finch handed the papers to Ethan and told them to start packing. After they left, Ethan stared at the papers, his face pale as a ghost. He felt they had been beaten, that everything they did was for nothing. But Clara grabbed his arm, her eyes blazing. She said they had been playing defense the whole time, trying to prove they were honest to men who had already judged them. What if, she said, we go on the attack? What if we show everyone why this is really happening? She put the pieces together out loud. The so-called anonymous complaints were no mystery. It had to be the Thornberrys all along. They wanted the land, and Margaret Thornberry wanted revenge. They were using Finch as their weapon. Ethan said they could not prove it, but Clara was already pacing, a plan forming in her mind. Mrs. Henderson at the boarding house saw everything. The land office records were public. If they could tie Finch to the Thornberrys, they could prove this whole thing was a crooked scheme. A spark of hope returned to Ethan's eyes. It was a long shot, but it was the only one they had. For 3 days, they worked without rest. Mrs. Henderson confirmed Finch had been dining with Samuel Thornberry. A clerk at the land office, after a kind donation, found records showing Finch had money tied up in Thornberry's cattle business. On the 5th day, they laid their proof on Judge Morton's desk. The judge listened, his face growing grim. He warned them that accusing powerful men was dangerous, but Clara showed him the documents. He studied everything, then nodded. He called for an emergency hearing the next morning at 10 o'clock. That night, they told young Noah everything. The boy just hugged them tight and said, "Families don't lose." In the dark, Clara and Ethan held hands, both admitting they were scared. But they knew, no matter what happened, the love they had found was real. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. The whole town wanted to see the showdown. The Coles sat on one side, a united family. Across from them, the Thornberrys sat stiff with anger while Finch wiped sweat from his brow. The judge called the court to order, and Ethan and Clara laid out their case. They showed the financial ties, shared testimony from other bullied ranchers, and questioned the timing of Finch's arrival. Then Clara stood and spoke from the heart. She said their love did not start with romance, but with hard work and respect. It might have started in an unusual way, but it was real. They were a family, and that was not fraud. The courtroom was dead silent. When the judge turned to Finch, the man started to shake. He tried to say he was just following orders, but under the judge's hard stare, he finally broke. He admitted the complaints came directly from Samuel Thornberry. The old man stood up, full of bitter pride. He claimed he was just protecting his family after Ethan had wronged his daughter. The judge's voice was like thunder. He called it corruption, an attempt to steal a man's land through lies and intimidation. He slammed his gavel down. The judge declared the assessment void because of the crooked dealings. The Coles homestead claim was safe. He then announced he was recommending Lawrence Finch be removed from his position for good. The fight was over. The family had won. Was handed down from his position and investigated. Mr. Thornberry was told to expect a visit from the Territorial Attorney General about his little conspiracy. The courtroom buzzed with excitement. Ethan pulled Clara into a hug, as tears streamed down her face. Noah cried and laughed at the same time, hugging them both. They had won. Outside, folks who had been doubtful now offered congratulations. Mrs. Henderson gave Clara a big hug. Even Margaret Thornberry approached them. "I am sorry," she said, her eyes on the ground. "I was hurt and angry, and I was cruel." "I hope you find real happiness," Clara told her gently. Margaret nodded and walked away. "Ready to go home?" Ethan asked, his arm around her. "Home," Clara repeated. The word felt just right. Let's head on home. In the months that passed, things on the ranch began to heal right. What started as a deal between Clara and Ethan turned into a true partnership, one full of love. Little Noah was doing much better. His reading got stronger, and the deep hurt from losing his mama started to ease. With things settling down, the ranch was finally turning a corner. One cool fall evening, Ethan walked up to Clara in the garden, holding a small box. He said, "Your ring never did fit right, and I reckon I never did this proper. I just demanded, I never asked." He opened the box to a simple gold band. "Clara Cole, will you marry me? Not for this land and not for some papers, but because I love you and I choose you." She laughed right through her tears. "You big fool. We are already married." "I know," he said, slipping the new ring on her finger, "but I wanted to do it right. It was a perfect fit." "Yes," she whispered, pulling him into a kiss. "Forever, yes." They were just two folks who had found each other, building a family out of courage and unexpected grace. And that little letter from Noah that started it all? It was a reminder that the best family is sometimes the one you build yourself. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.